What the balance would be subject to negotiation. I had a briefing with the Ministry of Energy Mines on their royalty regime when they were reducing royalties on what they call deep well drilling or deep well drilling and hard to find resources in the summer months, because in the summer it's not as easy to set up your pads as it is in the winter when you've got firm ground to drill into. And so the BC Liberals have continued to reduce the cost to industry to encourage the activity. I think that's the wrong way to go. The commodity is very, very valuable. We should be maximizing the benefit to the province. We do that with leases on land. We should do that on the actual commodity as well.
Okay, so you don't like any of those answers that private ownership allowed to under environmental regulations and at least 50% of profits. You think that would be a little too high?
I think so.
You would say extraction and marketing owner prohibited by BC government only. That would be an extreme. That would be
republicizing the private industry. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a hard sell today.
The other one says private ownership allowed under best possible agreements, which is basically what you say we have right now.
Yes.
Under best possible, because you're comparing with others. Well, this is our optimum take here, so that's what we take. Would you like the third?
To be honest, based on the volatility in the marketplace, based on what's happening in the Gulf of Mexico right now, and the significant black eye that oil companies and oil extraction is getting, I think that we need to find a balance. We need the revenue. If it wasn't for natural gas exports and development, we would be in difficulty in British Columbia.
But
so
a
balance is required.
Right now?
I believe that there's more that we can extract from the industry than we are.
How much?
Well, that's difficult to quantify, and that's why the 50% number. That strikes me as quite high, because they're doing the investment, they're taking the risk, they're extracting a product that is considered a public asset. So we need to share that benefit, just as we do in the forest industry.
So somebody arbitrarily put 50%, but you don't have a number to say, no, 25%
Not today.
would be good enough.
No, I don't have a number today.
Can we get back to it?
The public interest.
And you could tell us, after you have looked into the numbers, tell us exactly, we should be at this number, and instead we're getting only 10 when we should be getting 20.
I won't ever be in a position, Pedro, to give you an accurate answer until I'm in a position as a minister of the Crown. Rather than a critic, I have access to the Ministry of Finance. I have access to confidential materials that are exchanged between government and industry. I can make a best guess, and as a critic, that's my job. But it's the government that has all the cards.
What's your guess?
My guess is unknown at this time. The public interest has to be, I would be driven by the public interest. Mr. Campbell and the Liberals are driven by the corporate interest. So that in and of itself, I think, tells the public that there's got to be a balance between those 2 points.
When I met you very briefly, we were in a transportation meeting, and you want to go there to very quickly into provincial polls. Next to the return path. Okay, provincial polls, and then go to financial issues, and then go to where is it? Transfer, finance and BC Ferries. A little further down. Oh, BC Transit. Yeah, finance and BC Transit. Okay. So I found out that there's about $70 million that BC government gives as their share to support BC Transit.
That's exclusive of TransLink. That's just for BC Transit. And
BC Transit.
You're right. Kelowna, Campbell.
Yeah. That's we're talking exclusively of BC Transit here. Okay, so and then the municipalities put another 50 million or something, and there's another close to 50 million coming from fares. We talked very briefly about some cities having fare-free transportation because it would induce to better ridership. More people would be willing to take that public transport if it was free. And there are some cities that are actually doing that, and some others are doing in sections of the city, like Calgary and Seattle. They have in downtown a section free. And my question has always been, if you can do in downtown, why don't you do in the whole city? If you're paying in an alternative way here, why don't you expand it to the whole city? And which of those answers would you like, or would you have a different one?
I think that if I were talking to my constituents, they would come up with my tax dollars should not be paying for a free ride. Not everyone can access public transit. Contractors, roofers, they can't take their shingles and tools on the bus to a job site. So they're required to pay full freight on their gas, on the maintenance of the vehicle, and so on. They don't get subsidized by taxpayers. I support, and this is what got us talking, I support free transit use in a commercial core, whether it be the downtown Victoria, whether it be in my community of Langford, where they have privately run, not BC Transit run, privately run trolleys that are paid for by industry and by developers to shepherd people around the community to various points where they can spend their money. So there's a benefit to the Chamber of Commerce or the industries, to the commercial sector, to have people brought to their doorstep. That's an advantage. So there again, it needs to be a balance. I believe that if we have free service in a downtown core and we see a huge uptake in usage, then you expand from there. But we have not yet had the courage to make that step, even in the downtown core. We've relied on private, and in Langford is a classic example. BC Transit is now vacating some services because they see it being provided by the private sector. That's a concern to me. I believe our public transportation network and infrastructure, which we're paying for with our taxes as well as with user fees, should be mandated to provide a service to the broadest extent possible and encourage more ridership. And if reducing fares encourages more ridership, reduces our dependence on roadways and private transportation, that's a good thing. Again, I'm always struck, Pedro, by the need for balance. It's an easy political cop-out, I know. I mean, rigidity would be better.
I don't understand your difference between subsidizing the whole thing, because it would be unfair for some people, but subsidizing certain areas. Why is that difference? Like, what would be the difference subsidizing the whole BC Transit?
Well, because if you're doing it in an urban center where commercial activity is taking place, you're reducing the strain on that infrastructure by getting people. You don't need as many parking spaces, so you're reducing demand for car-based services, and that reduces costs overall to the people in that community. When you've got commutes, and I represent suburban residents who are commuters. I was on the bus on Monday. I ride the bus once a month out to Souk to talk to people about what their concerns are. No one ever talks to me about fares. They talk to me about service. And so I don't focus on fares because that's not what I'm hearing. People want, in East Souk or Otter Point, they want better service into Souk. And once they're into Souk, they want better service to Langford and then into town. They never talk to me about costs. They only talk to me about, get me another bus.
Sure, you talk to isolated people here and there, but if we had it on a referendum...
I talk to people who ride the bus.
If we had a referendum, like similar to this thing here, if 10,000 people came and participated in, and most people said, we want fare-free buses, would you go along with it?
I would. I certainly would go. I would explore it more vigorously than I have to this point in time. In the limited research that I've done, where there is free service, it's usually confined to a small area. And if that is successful and you're reducing single occupancy vehicles, you're increasing ridership, then you would expand that.
You've heard MLA John Horgan say that he would explore more vigorously about fare-free transit if a significant number of you, the voters, show interest about it. He's also heard from his constituents that improving the service of public transit is a priority. I would add that one does not cancel the other. Fare-free transit goes hand in hand with the improving of transit service. Also consider if fare-free transit would lower the traffic congestion in our cities. Consider if fare-free buses would lower the amount of carbon emissions on the air that we breathe. Now polling.ca is a potential tool to bring about the social change you want. It's up to you to participate. and the building of a better world. The choice is in your hands.
Transportation, you go to transportation and communications and provincial posts, go to transportation and communications, and you go to Commonwealth ownership.
Okay.
Which you talked a little briefly before too. But what the ownership of BC Ferries, TransLink, BC Transit, ICBC, infrastructure like bridges and all that, people have an opinion on it. It should be owned and operated publicly owned, and some others says, well, private partnerships. Where is your position?
I'm adherent to public ownership. I believe that these assets belong to all people, and all people benefit from them, whether they choose to use them. In the case of BC Ferries, for example, not everybody takes BC Ferries. If you live in Fort Nelson, you're probably not hopping on a ferry a lot. But if you live in a coastal community, you are. And I grew up here on Vancouver Island. It's been my view and the view of everyone that I talk to that the ferry is an extension of the highways. And as having the capital city in British Columbia on an island, citizens should be able to come back and forth freely from that capital, whether it be on government business, whether it be to develop their own entrepreneurial bent. It should be publicly owned for the benefit of all people.
Why not the 3Ps, private partnerships, so they can bring some capital into invest some money in it?
Yeah, but that capital gets paid. It's deferring debt to, rather than public debt, it's private debt, in my view. And the benefit with the private power companies, for example, and I'm diverting off because I know that issue more fully than I do on the transportation stuff, like whether it be Port Mann or Golden Ears or the bridges in the Lower Mainland. Private companies' cost of borrowing is 2 and 3 and sometimes 4 times higher than it is for the public sector. So by saying that there is risk in a P3 model is a fallacy in my view. And certainly when it comes to the independent power producers, it's a fallacy because they're given a long-term 30, 40-year contract to recoup the costs of their borrowing as well as profit for shareholders. So you've built into the P3 model shareholders, bankers, that all require more of a return than the public does. In a pure public ownership model, cost of borrowing is down, and there's no requirement for a shareholder dividend, unless in the case of hydro, if they make a whole bunch of money selling electricity, because we can do it here cheaply and sell it on the market at a profit, then that dividend comes back to all of us. And I think that model has worked very well in British Columbia. And Mr. Campbell just refuses to accept that the public sector can deliver services more efficiently and less costly than the private sector. He refuses to accept that. And this notion that somehow there's risk by private capital is just not true. They're guaranteed returns and at the public expense.
Well, I thank you very much.
Then you can apportion tax revenues that way.
Okay, I thank you very much.
Now it's your turn to add your opinion about the ownership and operations of public transportation. Do you agree with MLA John Horgan's opinion? Or do you prefer to support a for-profit services? It's up to you. Participate and be counted. I am Pedro Mora, wishing you well.